Hi, I'm Paula Berenguel. Have you ever tried to build field expertise across a large organization? I have been doing this for over 2 years, and I will share in this talk what worked well, what didn't work really well, and what are the pitfalls. Let me take you to day one of what I've learned teaching Postgres to 200 field engineers at Microsoft. This is what a real day looked like for a field engineer. So at 8 a.m., a Postgres HA question. At 9:30 a.m., a slow query emergency. At 11 a.m., can we migrate? He get asked by a customer or somebody else. Can we migrate from Oracle by Friday? At 2 p.m., a team suspicious message. Help. And somehow, I'm always one of the first people that get a panic direct message. So 200 plus engineers and field teams. Zero off the shelf playbooks. What could go wrong? So this is what a typical day, typical good day looks like. So the human side of teaching Postgres. So people, lots of questions, lots of community, and also lots of typical things that they were not so straightforward to solve. So I will start with challenge one. One size fits nobody. So look at this slide. We have on the left-hand side Alex. He's the typical startup solution engineer. And on the right-hand side, you have Jordan, an enterprise cloud solution architect. So Alex is really worried about things like, will this product scale to 1 million users tomorrow? So Alex is concerned about speed, scale, fast way to ship features. Jordan is an enterprise architect for a large organization. He's asking himself, hey, can we just simply fill out this 400 pages questionnaire about security? So Jordan cares about compliance, governance, control, among many other things. The point I'm trying to make is that those things they don't overlap. And this was my first big mistake. I tried to come up with the Postgres training, the Postgres modules where you could actually feed yourself from and solve each and every customer problem. But boy, was I wrong. So because I realized Alex and Jordan, they are really not the same species. So you should not feed them with the same meal. So my fix was to stop cooking tasting menus and start running a buffet. So this means modular content. So we have HA modules, migration modules, PG vector modules, security, performance, among many other modules. So the idea was to have the same ingredients. Everyone builds from every sorry, I mean to correct that. Everyone builds their own bowl. You got the idea here. The other thing that was very beneficial for this upskilling effort is to map personas to top scenarios. And I'll tell you how I did this. So after probably 1 year, I actually started surveying my engineers to try and understand what are the top 5 scenarios that you come across every single day, regardless of Postgres. But obviously, my focus is on Postgres. So Alex, our nice and kind solution engineer, is aligned to the startup segment. So he actually is doing pre-sales, which is completely different from a person doing post-sales. So the top scenarios for Alex probably are migrations. So how do I migrate from on-premises Postgres to, flexible servers? High availability and failover configuration. How can I scale this thing should my startup really be successful in the future? Cost optimization conversations. Obviously, central to the startup needs, there is a lot of cost constraints that goes on. So for Alex, I mapped migration, high availability, scalability modules as priority for him because he's a pre-sale solution engineer. Performance and replication, not so much, because they normally come as a most post-sales typical scenario. So this actually helps me align what is the most important thing for my field teams. So they need to be able to hold a conversation across those topics. And also scenario bingo. That's the other thing that we do internally. So the scenario bingo is also an outcome of a survey. So as we go, this is across all the field roles that I actually touch. So across all the roles, I send them surveys and they mark the real scenarios that they actually come across in the wild. So every single day or every single week, what are the most hot topics that are actually coming to my plate? By all means, nobody will be expected to have each and every scenario ticked off from this bingo card. However, this helps me to understand what is actually my training looking like for the next week and what is actually the concerns across all the roles that I can actually jointly combine sessions for a solution engineer, a cloud solution architect, and a global black belt, or even a consultancy architect from Microsoft Consultancy. Then comes challenge number 2. The jack of all trades fatigue is what I call. So for challenge number 2, I wanted to call out that the typical field teams at Microsoft, they are not they are not a Postgres DBA. They are actually data and AI professionals. They are security people, they are infrastructure and apps people. So Postgres is just one of the things they are doing on their day. So basically, which means on Monday, they are doing Postgres, and on Wednesday, someone asks them about something completely different, which is kind of causes that panic DM that I showed at the beginning of the slides. So I sit tight and I watched. I'm one of those people that I can pleasantly say that I worked with Postgres since the beginning of the century. So, but I observed a few things. So there is always a new thing in the tech industry. So in 2021, with the pandemic, here on the left-hand side, you will find that everybody was talking about going digital. So lift and shift. So everybody wanted to pursue and come to the cloud very quick to sustain their businesses. 2022, everything was analytics. There was a boom on analytics. Few startups came out and to place, and then everything, the focus shifted to analytics. 2023, everything is AI. With the launch of ChatGPT for the first time in November 2022, AI became bread and butter for most of the organizations. And 2026 plus, guess what? Postgres is still here. It's going on for 30 years. This year is actually completing his 30th anniversary. So what I wanted to say is Postgres is the database that never changes phone number. So it means it is something that you should sell to your field teams as something to show them it is worth learning because Postgres is here to stay. So I had to reframe that story a little bit because, like, you need to acknowledge that not everybody is either or want to be a Postgres DBA. So the reframe is you know what your customer have. For example, on the left-hand side, you can find self-hosted Postgres. So you know this, your customer knows this. On the right-hand side here, you can find zero downtime. So your customer wants to migrate from self-hosted Postgres to the Azure cloud and want a zero downtime experience. This is what you want and what your customer wants. Then in between you have Azure, the migration service and Azure Database for Postgres. These are the gaps. So guess what? These are the modules I was talking to you about. So this is actually what I teach. So the customer already made that hard decision of giving Postgres on Azure or in a cloud vendor a try. So now you just need to make the path clear. You need to be able to teach them how to migrate. That's all. So we reframe that ability that I want to correct that. So you can reframe the message about being a super Postgres expert or jack of all trades of Postgres as well on all the topics. And you can just learn as you need as a particular topic. Another thing that actually really works here is give them one story. Most of the customers I talk to and the field engineers and architects that I talk to, they actually they care about the slides, the recording, and the learning session that we covered, but they actually care even more about a story. A good told story is actually beats every time slides. So look at this. Enterprise customer migrated 2 terabytes from Postgres on premises, zero downtime. PG Bouncer was able to absorb the connection spikes. So this is a real scenario that actually went live. At Microsoft, this actually comes in lots of shapes and forms. So it's not only the art of storytelling, is also being able to articulate a customer reference call, being able to articulate a customer evidence, a case study, as we call. So your next customers, they will be more confident, yeah, that this was actually done by other customers at the same industry, and therefore I can do this. So this is actually a very empowering message to leave to your field engineers and architects. So, just so we are on the same page on what I actually teach, I teach Azure Database for Postgres Flexible Server. This is our community compatible, enterprise grade Postgres on Azure. 4 nines availability. There is a very rich ecosystem of extensions. You can find Site as extension, which is unique to Azure, PostGIS, PG Audit, you name it. Security with Microsoft Entra ID, customer managed keys encryption, Defender for cloud. On the performance pillar, we have our intelligent tuning, read replicas, PG Bouncer. Migration wise, we have our own migration service, as I hinted before. We also teach other ways of doing this, so by using PG CopyDB, even the VS Code Postgres extension and also the offering provides a very observable platform with metrics, logs, query performance insights. So this is what our engineers actually talk about with their customers every single day. Now that leads me to challenge number 3. After modularized my content and I mapped useful content to actual roles, how do I actually know that my training is being effective? Right? So, because Postgres unfortunately doesn't have a certification yet. So, the Postgres Certified Professional badge does not exist, which leads me with something to think. How do I actually measure that my field teams they learning something from me? They actually more confident. They are able to do things to actually execute on the day-to-day job. So I actually tried to copy and I copied a little bit of the Postgres community by itself. Why not? So instead of thinking about certification, we think about contributions. So every time you answer a thread, you unblock a deal, you write a blog post, you give a tech talk, not only to your customers, but to your colleagues' customers, you're helping somebody inside your organization, score. So we call this contributors wall, and this gets sent every month, and people are very proud to be obviously featuring there. It's almost like Postgres employees of the month. So that's one way that we can track their contributions, and we made sure that they are known by the great work that they are doing for the Postgres community internally, and also they'll be able to articulate that manager conversation at the end of the year, should they need to have a conversation about what is this upskilling program actually contributing to your career. So, and another metric that we use is the win wires, of course. So every win wire, so every time there is a win. So a deal is unblocked, or we fixed a very hard problem at a customer, we celebrate. So we actually map as well what was the situation, what Postgres knowledge was applied here, and what was the outcome. So this is something that actually is enables people to say, this was my scenario and I did it. So this is like, I'm proud of myself type of moment, which also goes to the contributors wall. Then, from time to time, I have to find gaps, because trainings, they are movable, in the sense that there is foundational training, but Postgres evolve. Every year we have a new version of Postgres, and Microsoft with that also release new features. So I need to constantly be looking at aligning the field gaps, so the field needs, with the new features of at Microsoft for our Postgres offering, and also to the Postgres evolving platform by itself that we all need to learn in order to better serve our customers. So I like to say that I started doing explain analyze on our engineers, and not literally, of course, but this metaphor works really well. So where are the sequential scans? Where should knowledge be indexed? But it isn't. So what I mean by that, if you're not a database nerdy, is that um, I need to constantly survey my engineers, and I need to ask them, what are the things that is actually happening quite a lot and you haven't really been enabled to deliver on that? And what are the things that perhaps I never touched upon and is super necessary? Because, um, digital platforms and cloud by itself just moves. So we always need to learn more about security, learn more about things. So I need to constantly be looking for new, to build my learning and upskilling roadmap, as well as updating previous content that they may be outdated. Even the foundational Postgres content needs uh, a little love from time to time. Then challenge number 4. This is the one that surprised me the most: keeping the community alive. People join an upskilling program not only because they want to learn something from you, or they want access to some particular information or networking. They actually come because they want a community, a safe place to actually ask the questions. Look at this. Azure Data Cat PostgreSQL channel. Alex asks a question. Hi team, has anyone configured a logical replication with Azure Database for Postgres? I'm running into a weird issue. And then crickets. An unanswered question is a community killer. So you cannot imagine the power of having people to rely on. So the solution to not letting people without answers, because otherwise they feel vulnerable and they're never gonna ask that question or expose themselves again, was to try and map some influencers. But honestly, we internally call them SMEs, so subject matter experts. So we have the migration person, the HA person, the performance person, the replication person. They are your buddies. So we aim to respond each and every question on, between 24 and 48 hours. Even a let me dig in is enough to keep the thread alive. So the effort here is not to let the question go unanswered. On community infrastructure still. So 3 things that is actually really helping me keep this alive is constantly building FAQs. Every time we have a learning session, every time we have new feature, we have something, we write limitations, we write about use cases and everything that will go with that particular need. And that becomes accidentally good new onboarding material, and it could actually at times leave into the public docs. So, and again, score again. So weekly training. So every week we have 60-minute trainings. They are recorded, they are summarized, they are derived, there is FAQ derived from them. So there is always a predefined agenda. You join, you anticipate if you need to be there, if you want to be there. So it's a safe space to talk and ask questions. So, and ask for help. and the Q&A channel. Program managers and the field teams, we answer the questions within 48 to, we aim, obviously, it's not perfect because, there's weekends, but 48 to 48, 40, let me correct it. 24 to 48 hours is low barrier. Anybody can ask a question, anybody can answer a question. And we harvest the question and answers as a knowledge base. With AI today, there is no limit on chatbots and things that could actually help you um, answer questions for the entire field. We have over 10,000 people in this channel today. So, to summarize, if I were to write a note to Paula 2 years ago, I would say your job about what do I need to tell you about your job? I would say I would tell myself I thought I had to build a training program, but I actually realized that I had to build more confidence. I had to build confidence at scale. I had to let people know where to find the resources, where to find a quick way to have a crash course on a particular module. I have to help them to hold a conversation, enable them in the way that they can find the resources they need so they can hold that particular topic or that particular conversation really well. I observed that not always the best technical engineer was actually the most successful uh, uh, employee. And so, three things here to call out is you're not teaching Postgres, you are actually teaching confidence. The second thing is the community is the curriculum. Having a community that you can rely on, that you can ask questions in a safe space to actually learn and make sure that you understand a concept deeply is gold. And number three, measure interactions, not completions. If you completed a course or if you have a certification on something, in my case, I could not really have a certification because Postgres has none, like I said, but the completions, the participation, the efforts that people has been, like the questions answered are the things that are actually worth measuring. And to summarize, Postgres survived 30 years without a marketing department. So, and it survives because people keep teaching them in conferences, in documentations, in Slack channels, Teams channels, even in virtual conferences like this. So, don't ever underestimate the power of Postgres and the community. So, that's effectively what you are doing. Thank you very much.